codes of ethics for groups like the Society of Professional Journalists and the Radio, Television, Digital News Association, folks like that, say it is permissible, it is probably ethical. However, there are lots and lots and lots of cautions involved in anonymous sources, and there are a number of working journalists who feel that anonymous sources are used too often and in too much of a cavalier fashion. So what the codes generally talk about, and I know this because we try to teach the codes in our classes, is that if at all possible you should avoid having to keep somebody completely anonymous, because you risk, if you've guaranteed, if you've pledged to your source that you will keep them anonymous, then you're basically making a promise you don't know that you can keep. Because let's say your story ends up going to court and you are subpoenaed to testify in court. Are you willing, as some reporters have been, to say, I'm going to go to jail rather than reveal my source? That's one option you may have. The other option may be, if for some reason your media organization says, look, you got to cough up who this is. Now you've broken your promise, which means one of a couple of things could happen. One would be that you'll never get any information out of that source again, and your organization may not get information out of sources, off the record or on the record, confidentially or with full disclosure, because the image may be out there that you guys don't keep your word. The other side of it may be that you could get sued, because someone might say, you know, I told this information on the pledge that it would be anonymous, you didn't keep that, and because of that I have suffered some financial or other ramifications that have cost me my job, or cost me my credibility, or cost me money, so I'm coming after your organization. And there is at least one case I know of that is documented through the Society of Professional Journalists, where somebody sued a news organization and won under just those circumstances. So it's something that the media organizations and the codes of ethics caution against. They would much rather that you tried to find corroboration of the information through a couple of other sources who might be willing to go on the record, so that you don't have to risk all the things that go with keeping something completely anonymous, largely because you just don't know that you can keep your side of the bargain on it. Now you get into situations like the Deadspin story that broke last fall, of the situation with the tape with Coach Pelini. If Deadspin's being honest about it, and there's some question as to whether or not they're really a serious journalistic organization anyway, but they claim they don't even know who the source is, that all of this was conducted through email, and that they have never corroborated who the person is or identified who the person is that gave them the information. That's astonishing to me, that a news organization wouldn't even know themselves what the name of their source is. I just had the news director from Channel 10 in to talk to my classes here in the last few days, and I raised this question with her about what they do. And her situation was, if a source, if the story is so important and the information from the source is so critical and so valuable to your audience that there is no other way to get this information, that the news director at 1011 says, at least I have to know who the person is. We're never going to have a situation where only the reporter knows who it is. So there's some spreading around of responsibility and liability, and it's not all just on one person's head, and that the news director in this case has a hand in making the decision about whether or not they grant anonymity to their source. But people looked at things like Watergate, and they say without deep throat that certain pieces of the Watergate puzzle may never have been uncovered. And that was a secret that was kept pretty well for a couple of decades, but we did eventually find out the name of Deep Throat. But there was great risk to Woodward and Bernstein and the Washington Post for keeping an anonymous source that essentially helped to cause the resignation of a sitting president, which that was big news.